The Jewish poem. Can we find our way back? I mean all the way back. Before a jealous God, before Abraham and Sarah wandered off from Sumer, before ancient Sumer itself gave birth to Patriarchy, scourge of the planet, ushering in the end times, before David and Solomon, before priests and kings, before Jewish exceptionalism, but not before the original Shekhinah, divine feminine presence, body of light, body of bliss, incarnation of the goddess, when we Jews were a tribe like any other. Tribes speaking in tongues, wearing rainbow IDs of skin and meat and bone, hunters and gatherers, shakers and trance dancers, Jews no different, moving with the seasons, year after year, circling around, starting over, owning next to nothing, burning our self-images in great bonfires, determined by configuration of the stars, burning fixations and regrets, burning bruised egos, burning lingering grudges, burning effigies of hate, sending it all up in flames, egalitarian and free, at home in telepathy and celebration, at ease in our animal bodies. Because Judaism, not even a religion, till forced to survive slavery in Egypt by sheer mountain magic, till forced to survive Roman defeat by mimicking the Romans, till forced to survive the scorched earth policy of medieval Christians by adopting Catholic sterile male absolutism, by hiding our wizardry in secret Kabbalah texts, by abandoning our pantheistic pagan roots for a trickle-down religion where we finally became respectable cutout figures in the fully urbanized pop-up book of anti-life. Instead, original tribal Judaism, a freewheeling shamanic assemblage of wonder-working rabbis, healing the sick and lame, invoking the spirit world, overflowing with visions. Can we find our way back to long before biblical brick and mortar Holy Land? Can we return to life before patriarchy, before a distant sky god, before thou shalt not, before all the rules and regulations, the obsession with purity, before the terrible swift sword, before the commandment to massacre in cold blood every last tribe around us with whom we shared what we called Canaan? Before the promised land, before fear and trembling, before we were tossed from the garden in shame, before the garden itself, before storerooms bursting with grain, slave food for monuments built by forced labor, before egomaniacal kings and queens, before herds of tame animals and the killer military needed to defend them, before one culture after another shoved the goddess aside, before we got hoodwinked into forsaking wilderness, fleeing from Shekhinah, to whom we had always willingly surrendered, outside of clock time, outside of history. From the Mediterranean Sea to the Bay of Bengal and beyond, the goddess, as old as the hills. She belonged to nobody. She belonged to everybody, radiating her power, her sexual arousal taking preference over all else. Men gladly performing yoga tattva down on their knees, worshiping her sex, which In full-on trance, her legs spread wide, she displayed for all to see, holding back nothing. And the non-stop hunger of men made perfect sense then, and everyone was satisfied, everyone complete. This is what we lost when Big Boy took over. Men shielding themselves from women who became no more than servants, no more than baby factories, as we slammed the lid shut over ecstasy until Christians and Muslims outdid us, carpet bombing sexuality, replacing her presence with nuclear-tipped rockets, sacrificing everything we held dear, love and sanity and well-being, at the altar of patriarchy. So say it again. We Jews, a tribe like any other, born from undulations of the feminine landscape for untold thousands of years, supplicants in sacred groves, our ceremonies shamanic, glorying in our physicality, luscious, at ease, conversing with spirits, eating truth-telling psychoactive plants, fucking in the bushes, big smiles on our faces, any day of the week, any week of the year. No guilt, no fear of God's searchlight swinging down from above, keeping an eye on us, a monstrous fiction concocted by an upstart priestly caste solely for control and corruption, signaling the end of the old ways, signaling the beginning of fanatical suspicion of the bad news known as Almighty God. And in short order, there we were, scurrying along below him, no longer making way for the goddess in our midst, no longer greeting our brothers and sisters, the plants and animals, no longer our divine selves, but bowing and scraping before a God perpetually jealous of his own creation, while we surrendered our mojo in an attempt to placate and please him, our paternalistic God, our angry God, approving this and smiting that, full of ascetic fury, a fury identical to the barren, unforgiving desert from whence he came. When Yahweh, single true God of the entire world, gave orders to wipe out every last heathen, how different were we from the desert religions materializing after us? How different from 4th century to 21st century Christianity? How different from 7th century to 21st century Islam? Zealots citing chapter and verse to justify mayhem, to justify extermination. All of us born from the sand, from punishing heat and a vacant sky, delivering nothing. Monotheisms, outlawing pleasure, drowning Shekhinah in her bath, disowning the here and now, carving up eternity into house lots and freeways, promising only the possibility of a reward in faraway heaven once we're dead and gone.